I'm so happy to be on. I haven't made a video in a long time, and I wanted to just say, first of all, I'm just so happy. I'm super happy that so many people have reached out already on the post that I just made, messaging and commenting as well on just this integrated approach, and how sometimes when people are more spiritually advanced and they place that domain of their development or healing as a priority, sometimes there can be a missing piece with a more grounded psychological approach of healing. And so, this whole conversation around spiritual bypassing is not new, certainly. But it's just one that I've been seeing more and more, so I just wanted to speak about it. And it was really in 2017 that my work started to become more spiritual. Now, I've always been spiritual, but that was the first year that it felt brave of me to start to bring it into my work, because I was trained, just in a more traditional way, and was even afraid to, just get into the whole thing of scope of practice. And I had just a lot of fears back then around mixing psychology and spirituality, which are totally gone, and my work has never been more spiritual. So, but 2017 was when I started to really open that door. And I want to say about 4 years ago is when I started to attract clients coming to this work that were really it was very pronounced in terms of their spiritual development was super high and advanced. And I remember the first few clients coming to me, and it was so exciting, and I had so much fun, and just the conversations and the work that we were able to do together was just so next level for me. So it was really exciting. And I remember that aspect of my career very well. But one of the things that I noticed right away in a lot of these individuals was that they placed their spiritual healing or practices above the more grounded psychological approach. And some of them had even rejected therapy altogether, and had a lot of a rejection or judgments of therapy and just the more grounded psychological work. And so just intuitively right off the bat, thankfully, I was able to recognize that it was just things were a little out of balance. And so I had to help a lot of these folks to not only do that grounded psychological work of facing their trauma and doing, shadow work, and even really bringing it down to the real foundational ground level work of learning how to be in healthy relationships, taking it down to the relationship skills level, right? All of the stuff that I kind of say is the foundation of, this path. And a lot of times, because I have within my own self, I have a very strong polarity of Pisces and Virgo. I think that's why it's coming to mind for me today in particular, because there's this internal thing that happens too that I've actually lived and experienced, where sometimes my Pisces side can want to really be up very high, and doesn't want to come down to ground level sometimes. So I know this one personally as well, so I have a lot of compassion for it. But thankfully I was able to notice with these clients, where the gaps were, and to be able to help them, first of all, become open to the process of doing the therapeutic work, to be able to face their shadow. And it just helped so much to be able to balance them out. And the really incredible thing was that they started to see how these two things could actually work together to support each other. A lot of times, highly spiritual people, when they're not able to see the zoomed out perspective of the integrated approach with healing, that even relates to the 4 elements, which I work with a lot: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, which map onto earth, air, water, fire, the 4 elements. And how, when I think of an integrated, truly holistic approach to healing, I really think about being able to work with all of these different parts, and that we can't skip steps. And trust me, I've personally tried to skip steps before, and I've seen a lot of people that try to skip steps, and we just can't. And so whether you listen to this video and it inspires you to maybe check in on your own healing, or whether this just plants a seed for you, I just want to let you know that, this is just part of it. It's part of the journey for us to become more whole, more integrated. And the beautiful thing is that this grounded foundation actually provides that base that then supports your spirituality. It can hold it and then allow the spiritual side to even get stronger and richer. It's kind of like the idea of a tree with really, really strong roots can then, reach even higher to heaven. And so this was the mind-blowing thing for a lot of these spiritually advanced clients, is that they had a rejection of the grounded psychological approach. And the stronger the rejection or the resistance to it, by the way, the more problems I saw for them in terms of the unresolved shadow, that were really, it was like the grip on them was so tight that it was creating major problems in their life. And in their relationships, there was like a very pronounced level of projection onto other people. And so for all of us, the more of the shadow work and the trauma healing work and all of this, what I'm talking about today, that we haven't actually unpacked, the more that we will end up projecting that onto other people, right? The good news is that once you start to do that shadow work and everything that I'm talking about, you start to be able to do this less and less. And so the projections do start to become less and less frequent, because we're looking at our own stuff. And so therefore we're not putting it on other people as much. And so I've also just been able to, like, within my own healing, this whole conversation helps to orient me as it has over the past 11 years. And I'm really I'm seeing so strongly the fruits of my labor, because it really has been the last 11 years that I've done such intensive, almost obsessive shadow work. And I've been talking about this in my groups in my community about how some of us have done a lot of that, and now it's time for us to come up and out of it, because that can also become an addiction when you're just always down there in the shadow looking for more. We've had great conversations this year about that. But the truth is that I can finally see, without saying that I'm done, because we're not, there's always more layers. But when we can just fully surrender into, this process of understanding polarity integration, how spirituality and really grounded psychology work so beautifully together, as well as, I would say, if we think about the physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, the physical aspect of that with the rise of somatic healing and embodiment work, that's another piece too. Because when I think about psychology and spirituality, I also would put the mental and the emotional and the psychological realm, but then we can't skip also the psychological part too. And that's even a whole other thing that we can layer on here too, as well as our physical health, how we take care of our bodies, whether we exercise, and so much more, right? In terms of the psychological, and how all four of these levels support each other and they work together, right? And so I just wanted to come on and share that I do see with the rise of spirituality, which has been such a beautiful thing, such a necessary thing, there's much more pronounced, really unresolved shadow that can even get into the very dark realms. And even as I say this out loud, we already know this through some organized religion stuff, and how whenever you bypass the shadow work and the grounded psychology, it can get very, actually, I was talking to someone about this today, and she used the word dangerous, and I would say that is actually a truth. And it could really get pretty dark when we don't want to unpack our shadow, when we don't want to face these things. And so with the rise of spirituality and people really giving so much of their time, energy, focus, attention, like solely to the spiritual, right? Maybe they only do energy clearings, or they only, work with psychics or whatever it is. All that stuff is great and it's part of it. But when we miss even just like talk therapy, which gets such a bad rap, talk therapy for me, I had an amazing therapist who I worked with for years. And I'm so grateful for her. I never would have been able to do the healing that I have personally if that wasn't a really big part of my own path. And so that's why for me, my own life healing has informed my work with clients too. And so that's why for me, I have to kind of take an assessment with people with like, where are the missing pieces here for all of us that we just need to address so that we come into more balance. The good news here, and I'll start to wrap up, is that once it's actually kind of like an easy fix, because if you have somebody that can really see and reflect back to you that like, okay, wow, this is an area that really needs attention. Just the grounded psychological stuff where it's not always sexy, it's not always romantic, but it is critical to be able to come into more balance. And with the rise of spirituality and people placing a lot of their energy and attention there, I do see that this gap, right, is becoming more pronounced. And so some, at worst, in spiritual communities or even with spiritual leaders, it's a big problem when they aren't able to, they haven't actually done this inner work. Again, just like on a basic therapeutic level. So again, I just want to say this to everybody. Maybe you know people that you can see that this is happening. Maybe this is something you can relate to with your own healing. But once we see it, it's actually so easy to just like come into greater balance, and it has a very significant effect. So once I was able to work with these clients who were coming to me that were spiritually advanced, to be able to help them to do this integration and face the things that they were avoiding, I mean, it was changed their whole life. And it's not that they stopped being spiritual, but these things ended up working together and supporting each other really, really well. So I just wanted to say this, right? It's okay for us to be able to take an assessment of ourselves, where we're at in terms of this balance, as well as the people that we're in relationship with. And the more that we can really come into an understanding about the importance of this integrated approach, sometimes we can hold that mirror up for other people to maybe have conversations, right? And to be able to encourage them. We don't want to try to rush in and rescue people, but even just having some of these conversations and maybe even first and foremost in your life, modeling this more integrated approach that can truly involve this grounded psychological healing, and how that's impacted your life can really help everybody, right? Not only people we're in relationship with, but everybody around us. So I'm so curious to know if you have either, walked this in your own life, or maybe you had to come into greater balance, between your psychological healing and your spiritual work. Or maybe if you see this happening on the collective, or have been in relationships with people where you have been, where the implications for other people bypassing some of this has actually hurt or harmed the relationship. And yeah, there's so much to talk about here. So I would really love to hear if you're comfortable sharing in the comments or just messaging me, because this is really big, especially as we move into just more and more spirituality, which I don't really see that's going anywhere anytime soon. So, okay, so much love to everybody. Yeah, it's beautiful here in Los Angeles. It's winter, but it's beautiful here. It's very on the warmer side. Please don't be mad at me for that. Okay, talk to you all soon.